Hey, and welcome back to the channel, and this is the Google Pixel 7, and this is the Google Pixel 7a. Two phones from Google that are very close in price and very close in specs, but what's really the difference between these two phones, and why should you pick one over the other? Okay, so let's talk hardware on these two devices. The Pixel 7 and 7a look very similar in terms of design, and probably the only way that you can tell these two apart from the exclusive color that I have on my 7a is one, the size. The Pixel 7 is using a 6.3-inch OLED display, while the 7a is rocking a 6.1-inch OLED display. Bezels on the 7a is obviously a lot more noticeable, but the form factor on the 7a, since it's a smaller phone, is much nicer in my opinion. The 7 isn't unwieldy by any means, but if you prefer a smaller phone, then the 7a feels nicer in the hands. Both the 7 and 7a also feature a 90Hz refresh rate, which is great, so scrolling on social media or around the OS feels and looks super smooth. Now, going around the back, you're probably not going to notice much here, but the 7a is missing a rear mic, which in my opinion doesn't matter all that much, but obviously having more mics, the better. But in terms of the camera bar, both look very similar with a main wide camera and an ultra wide camera, but we'll talk more about cameras later in the video. Now, the back of the 7a is made out of plastic, and if you didn't tell me that, I wouldn't have batted an eye, but the 7a's back is plastic while the Pixel 7 is using a glass back. Now, in hand, it doesn't feel all that different, but where the camera bar and side rails meet is seamless on the Pixel 7 versus the 7a, where you can see where the camera bar ends and the side rail begins. Now, if you're like me and you're always putting a case on your phone, I'd highly recommend checking out channel sponsor Dbrand and their grip cases. The one that I have on my 7a is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Pixel skins on my grip case, which obviously looks a lot like one of the four turtle dudes who love eating pizza and fighting crime. Then my Pixel 7 is using their palette line, which looks super artsy and very colorful, but you can obviously choose from a ton more designs that fits your style. So if you want to get a skin for your 7 or 7a, or maybe a grip case, make sure to go to dbrand.com/heymarkel or click the first link down below. And huge shout out again to Dbrand for sponsoring a portion of this video. Okay, so in terms of its performance, the Pixel 7 and the 7a are both rocking Google Tensor G2. Love it or hate it, it's a good chip for these phones, and in my opinion, it works well for these two devices. Now, it's not a super powerful chip like the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, but it has plenty of power that can run casual games and has enough juice to edit photos and videos just fine. The phone can run warm on both of these devices, especially if you've been playing games or editing photos or videos for hours, but not to a point where it felt too hot to the touch or to a point where it overheated and throttled the phone. Now, as for the battery, the Pixel 7 actually has a slightly smaller battery at 4335 mAh battery, while the Pixel 7a has a slightly bigger battery at 4385 mAh. Now, the Tensor G2 could be a little bit more efficient, but battery life is pretty much the same on both of these devices. I can easily drain both of these phones by 11 p.m. or by midnight, and I'd have to charge these phones overnight if I need to get up early and use the phone again. But obviously, how you use your phone is a lot different than, how I use mine, so just take my testing with a grain of salt. However, one major advantage that the Pixel 7 does have over the 7a is faster wired and wireless charging, and I'll put those differences on screen. Okay, now let's talk cameras on these phones. So as for the cameras on both of these devices, both phones are actually equipped with dual cameras, a main wide camera and an ultra wide camera. So the Pixel 7 uses a 50 megapixel sensor for its main wide camera, a 12 megapixel for its ultra wide camera, and a 10 megapixel front facing camera with a 92.8 degree ultra wide field of view. The Pixel 7a, on the other hand, uses a 64 megapixel sensor for its main wide camera, a 13 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 13 megapixel front facing camera with a 95 degree ultra wide field of view. Now, as far as I'm aware, the camera sensor on the normal Pixel 7 is actually much more expensive than the one that they use on the 7a, but it's also larger and has larger pixels, so that means it'll perform better in low light and theoretically process those photos better with, better colors and contrasts. Now, looking at both of these phones' photos on my computer, I could probably only notice an improvement in color accuracy or how saturated the photos look, the white balance, and maybe how the HDR is being processed in some of these shots, but it's not a drastic improvement over the Pixel 7, where I could tell that the Pixel 7 shoots way better photos than the Pixel 7a. Regardless of those minor differences, you're still going to get incredible photos out of the Pixel 7a, and in my opinion, if you're not really comparing these two phones side by side, the Pixel 7a definitely still has that Pixel look that we all know and love. It is one after all, but yeah, when it comes to photos, both are pretty much identical, and you're not going to be disappointed with it. And also, as a side note, the Pixel 7a actually outputs a 16.1 megapixel photo, while the Pixel 7 shoots out a 12.5 megapixel photo. Again, you can barely tell a difference in terms of its quality unless you're really pixel peeping or comparing them side by side. Besides that though, both the Pixel 7 and 7a also feature photo and blur, which is their new software feature that they released on the 7 series, and I'm pretty sure this made its way to other Pixel phones as well. Now, when it comes to video, you're actually getting a couple of things here that's better on the Pixel 7. You're getting 4K 60 on both the ultra-wide and the main wide camera, as well as the front-facing camera, which is really great to see. And of course, you're getting cinematic blur, which can give you portrait mode-like videos, but just keep in mind it's capped at 1080p at 24 frames per second, which isn't terrible, but it could be better. The Pixel 7a, on the other hand, is missing cinematic blur and can only record 4K 60 using the main wide camera, so that means no ultra-wide or front-facing camera recording at 4K 60, which to me is very odd given that these two phones are nearly identical in terms of specs, and the fact that they're both running the Tensor G2 chip should be able to give the 7a those video features as well, but Google seems to have those features locked, or it's coming soon in a future update. But yeah, that's about it for the Pixel 7 and the 7a. Both phones are very similar in terms of its specs and how they operate and how the phone looks, but I think the Pixel 7, obviously being the more premium phone, feels like the better buy here, and I'll tell you why. So with all these sales going around for the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, you can often find the Pixel 7 online for around $499, which is actually the same price as a brand new Pixel 7a. The Pixel 7 is obviously a more premium phone with a slightly bigger display with thinner bezels, but you'll also get an option for a 256 gig model, which is probably a little bit more than that $499 price tag, but yeah. You're getting faster charging, you're getting an additional mic and better video capabilities. Now, if you don't really want a bigger phone and you don't care about having an additional mic or having 4K 60 or other camera features, then obviously go for the Pixel 7a. But maybe you should wait a few more months till you pick one up, since these often go on sale after a few months of going live. Maybe you can save about $50 to $100 by waiting and get a cheaper deal on the 7a. But if you can find a Pixel 7 for that same $499 price tag, I definitely pick this one up instead. Now, I do also have the Pixel 6a from last year, so if you want me to compare that phone to the brand new 7a, let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out on that video. Thank you all so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.